Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. Welcome to Focus on Liberia. I am the media platform, program or station West African correspondent Edward Amara. Welcome to this all and most important program where we give you regular updates about events that occur on the continent of Africa. As I normally say, Africa is our home, it's a very important continent. This we are want peace and tranquility to reign. Unfortunately, because certain circumstances, Africa have never been enjoying the peace, the unity, and the collaboration, especially deserved among the neighbors and the world at large. It have thrown Africa into several commotion. It have destabilized our economy, caused a lot of harm on the people that led to economic destruction, destruction of the young population, and even trying to discourage generation yet unborn. Nevertheless, Africa remained to be an area of hope, a land of peace and unity, a land of great men, a land where human we at first discovered. Africa remained to be one of the unique places on the continent and an area where every nation or on the planet Earth is definitely envying to be. Remain to be one of the most virgin ground found on the continent, on Earth, and it is also a spectacular place to live. So welcome to this all important program that we normally give you updates and analysis on event that happens on the continent. Today we have 8 major stories so far to briefly cover. 8 major stories. First, we go in the DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo. This was and is one of the most largest countries on the continent and a one that is deeply infected with corruption, nepotism, tribalism, regionalism, sectionalism, and above all, it is full of insurgents. With all its wealth it is situated in, unfortunately, conflict has engulfed over the country, maybe political ambition, failure of the people to rapport positively, have resulted into the destruction of that country's population, its economy, and maybe it is one of the most unsafe places on the continent. Let's start there. Death toll to 170 after DRC Congo flood. We all know this some part of Africa on the continent today they are experiencing their rainy season. And because of government lack of investment into infrastructure, especially in rural areas, when flooding normally takes place, it affects the livelihood of those people. Some communities are heavily flooded to an extent that they lost their lives and property. In North Kivu region in the DRC Congo, heavy rain have been downpouring over the past 72 hours. And it was also experienced in Rwanda, their neighbor. Rwanda, about 130 people lost their life officially. In DRC Congo, 170 have also lost their life. If you collate that number, it's 300. And when you really analyze, you all know how unscrupulous our African leaders are. They do not report real stories. They do not report real. In fact, they don't report news, rather they make news. So if they are making news, meaning those figures we are carefully massaged, carefully manipulated and presented, because they don't want the death toll to be so high, people will start questioning their integrity and why they allowed a region like that to be always flooded. And when people are dying, property are being lost, their livelihood are being destroyed, when the situation is almost always predictable. So they have presented about 170 people, according to official number, that they actually lost their life. But unofficially, I think the number should be, and that experience is also being felt into neighboring Rwanda. And unfortunately, this was same war. This is same region where you have maybe the M23 rebels seriously operating, and so these people they are being attacked. It was scenario on the continent. War flooding, and personal destabilization. So it's unfortunate and it's quite amazing that our leaders are so unscrupulous. They do not attack real problems. They know the reality. They do not face the test of reality. They only believe in corruption, manipulation. So we are afraid. The continent is suffering. Everybody is suffering from one or two reasons. So in the DRC, that situation is so pathetic. Let us come to Kenya, same East Africa. In Kenya, the government of William Ruto have set up an inquiry board to investigate the 100 people that actually lost their life due to cultism. A church, popularly Good News Church International, asked its membership to starve to death through dry fasting so that they can meet their maker, Jesus Christ, earlier and forget or eliminate themselves, if not delete themselves from the corrupt and vindictive planet. Unfortunately, most of them were even strangulated according to some police reports. They have lost their life, and the issue have been termed as a disaster and a site of terrorism. The pastor is being investigated to see if whether there is maybe lack of intelligence or an administrative blunder that led to the death of those people. He has been arraigned into court and charged for manslaughter, murder, terrorism, and the like. He has denied all of those things and said it was the people who actually wished to fast. And he did not permit or order anybody to fast to death in the name of meeting Christ. That is why the so-called evangelist, pastor, clergyman is saying. And the government of William Ruto has also ordered the police and especially the interreligious council to work with the police for them to investigate the various type of religious institutions that they have into Kenya. We all know Kenya is one of the most controversial. It is only in Kenya you will see a man whipping a woman for her to get better marriage. Sometimes he even go and back them. But a lot of manipulation takes place into Kenya in the name of exoneration, in the name of one having economic freedom. And they believe in exploitation. Sometimes these people are poor or living in abject poverty. What they normally do, they will ask you to sow seed. Sowing seed, in essence, you give a substantial amount of money, and they will tell you that if I can pray fervently for you, at the end of the day, you are going to recoup your money in 100 folds. Those people are now so sick. Some of them are dying. Some of them do not even stand the stand of recuperating. If you cannot recuperate from such thing, I doubt how you will survive. And because of the manipulation and the kind of fanatic mentality these so-called religious institutions taught those folks in Kenya, some of them even refused assistance when the Red Crossers and other institutions met them. We are actually on the mission to rescue them. Some of them said they should be led to die. They wouldn't want to be rescued by any organization. Some of them refused drugs, they refused food and water. So it's unfortunate. But although this is a throwback on our African leaders, if they had not been so corrupt, been so manipulative, if they have not been violating the social contract they signed with us, I don't think or feel an individual can actually lead him or herself to starvation, to death in the name of meeting Christ. And the most religious people today are those who are absolutely poor, those who are living in poverty, because they believe that almost everything has an interconnection with religion, one faith. So if you are poor today, it is because you lack faith. It's because you are not praying fervently. It's because you are not sowing seed. And when this so-called Good News International Church came into Kenya, they decided to preach economic freedom. Everything about it was for prosperity. And it tried to circumvent the fact and lure people into believing things that we are not actually factual. Now, because of it brutal, unthoughtful, maybe unregulated way of teaching and preaching, most families have lost their loved one. And the situation is so frustrating that some of them we are being dug and buried into mass graves. When they were being dug, you see how some of them we are even strangulated to death in the name of meeting their maker. So I wonder if that is how heaven is. If heaven is to kill somebody, to me, I don't know. Even Christ felt the pain of death, and he understood that for one to die is so difficult. It's so a challenging time. You know, they have the dying and death. If anybody who has undergone the stage of dying, I wonder how these people we are dying. You know the stage, if you are reading about it, so difficult, very difficult to accept. You still reassure yourself. So when those people we are, if you're not there, this is very frustrating. Anyway, we need to take time and see what type of religious institution we should honor and those that we can permit. It is not actually wrong at times. You see certain radical, unpredictable, or de facto, if not a totalitarian or authoritarian government led by these khaki boys. They will regulate the type of religion that comes into their country because some of them can preach radicalism. And when these people are negatively radicalized, they can become spectacularly troublesome. They can do anything and for any reason at anywhere, nobody threatens them. And they can just be easily moved with that absolute conviction that this man has said this. But if you are able to save you, why can't him save himself? Why can't him save himself? Why must he be exploiting money out of you in the name of giving you salvation? So let's be very careful. We come into Somalia, still in the Horn of Africa. The government of Somalia is actually saying they have cut down, if not reduced, the attack of al-Shabab on its government and good citizens of the state to 70%, meaning only 30%. Al-Shabab have now the opportunity to fight against them. Since the 1993, Somalia has fallen apart. It has been invaded by al-Shabab. Ethiopia came in some time ago, flushed out al-Shabab. They came back. Al-Shabab have been disturbing Mogadishu, Puntland, and other places. Somalia have never had maybe a sustainable and uninterrupted peace and government. Al-Shabab have even been taken, setting bombs into the parliament. And most of the time, Somalia have not been able to even organize general election. Parliament just sit down, conclude, and appoint a prime minister to be. The people vote by clans. And the central government today is now backed by the clan militias. They are claiming that Puntland, Hargeisa, the like of Mogadishu, and other strategic places into Somalia is definitely peaceful. And Somaliland also near Somalia, which is a self-independent land, is suffering from starvation and other things. So we are seeing, that is why the government is saying that terrorism attack has actually been cut down. And they are absolutely boastful, if not proud, of sounding this, that we are able to observe the Ramadan month uninterrupted when nobody was killed out of the act of terrorism. That is why they are saying, congratulations if that is how it went on. Let's see. Another bastardizing news from Egypt. An Egyptian blogger heard for alleged child exploitation. You see, normally I relate this to poverty. We are absolutely poor, but some of us are morally conscious, maybe organized. But some people are so devilish, they are cunning criminally, and they can do anything to learn money. They can nag. And they believe in self-manipulation. They can even refer to self-manipulation or do it with their own parents. Stupidly, a blogger solidly confessed on social media in Egypt, claiming that her 2 children had incest. That was what she said. And a lot of people started following her. When she was being thoroughly investigated, it came out to be a spectacular lie with absolute quality. All she had wanted was to have thousands of followers so that she can definitely gain money out of it. Now the Egyptian government has held her on a tight place, and the public is even saying she should be punished severely, because we all know Egypt is an Islamic society, it's an Islamized society, although they are claiming that it's a secular state, but it's an Islamized society where anything is being done maybe on Islamic standard. So if you are in Christian state, maybe an incest people could have called them to cancel it. But when such thing like that happen in a deeply religious Muslim state, they term you as an infidel, a kafir, and they even rate you that you are a death candidate. And announcing that your kids are involved into incest, it means it is an abomination, it is unlawful, it is immoral, it is unacceptable, and maybe it could be punishable by death in certain religious state. So in that doing, she has exposed the children to attack by the society. They can easily give them mob justice. So when she confessed that she only did that for her to attract followers so that she can have reasonable money, maybe to take care of this very family she's even endangering. How much would she get out of blocking? And let's assume that she had the followers and start getting the money, and those children are exposed to public attack, and both of them lost their life. How will she celebrate that moment? Only God knows. Poverty, illiteracy, and ignorance are actually consuming Africa. However, because of poverty, even the literate can behave stupidly, foolishly, and they can land themselves into trouble. So it's so a pathetic situation. Let's come to Mali. In West Africa, the military junta said the delayed referendum will be held in the delayed referendum will be held in June this year, and the presidential election will be held earlier February 2024. The referendum is actually meant to change part of the Mali constitution since the fall of Ibrahim Abubakar Keita. In 2020, Mali have seen a lot of military coup d'etat, and it has been ruled by absolute decree from the junta leader or the khaki boys. And in Mali, if the khaki boys cannot support your government, it means you do not have a legal means of operating, because Mali is engulfed into terrorism, and the French have left the place. Russia are taken over gradually by the Wangan group, and the military government in Mali have not been able to curtail attack on their government by these so-called Tuareg rebels and others. Although some of them are in the Hague for trials, they are even disturbed the museum in Timbuktu region, where they have classical things when you think about Usman Danfodi and others. Unfortunately, the military is now saying the amended or the constitution to be amended, that is a referendum, will be voted for or against in June 2023, and the election for the next civilian president may be held in February 2024. Maybe the constitution could involve a military being given the power to run, or it is even possible that Kelta may offload his military uniform and definitely becomes a civilian and run for the presidency of Mali, where he can legalize himself as president. But how the constitution stands to be amended, we don't know. The most important in the process is through a referendum. Let's see. We come back into Uganda. Cannabis and khat ban overturned in Uganda. Cannabis sativa. How do you call it in Liberia? Opinion. Then sometimes Israeli they call it your jamba. That's what they call it, jamba. So it's just a kind of locally grown stuff, and most of those things are actually found in places like Latin America. But in Uganda, people are making money out of it. But the government has officially banned it. It was officially banned by the government through the parliament. However, the magistrate has overturned the ruling by the parliament, claiming that it needed two-thirds majority, and those who voted against it, we are not in a two-thirds form. So, the growing of cannabis sativa and khat is not termed as a criminal offense in Uganda. And even if somebody caught smoking and selling it, he or she should not be charged criminally. However, it still remains unlawful when you want to sell or grow cannabis sativa in Uganda. So I don't know what type of complication is this. The more you read the law, the complicated it becomes. Because if you say this thing is not a criminal offense to grow or sell it, according to the judge, but yet it remains a criminalized thing if you are caught using any of those properties. So though it is not legal, but it is not officially permitted. It is not officially permitted. So it's really a complicated situation, and people need to be very careful. The police will raid you, beat you, charge you. Maybe if they charge you to court, the court can easily discharge you because it's not a criminal offense. But the possibility of you being charged to court when you are caught session is very difficult. And because of poverty, people are also involved into crimes, petty crimes, and they know really. And cannabis survival, I think, is so bad. In Sierra Leone, they have what they call coups. I don't know whether it is existing in Liberia. Wherever young guys like me are just taking it, their lives are being relegated. When they take it, they definitely of Ureni Museveni, who, because of one reason or the other, have never been able to lay the country on this trajectory of democracy. They have never been able to lay the country on the trajectory of democracy. So let's see. On air attack, journalists must be investigated. Very pathetic. In Africa, we do not have media protection for journalists. It is only in theory, but it is definitely not in the practical form. In Ghana, in the Tamale region, a journalist was actually on air, broadcasting, just the way I am here, making analysis into certain news. However, a certain politician in the region of Tamale involves himself into local chieftaincy politics, which was by virtue of fact, or is by virtue of fact, a violation of his own, of the chieftaincy constitution, and he wants to involve himself, and that is not within his mandate. That is not within his jurisdiction. What he did, why the man was on air, and that man, according to popular news and other pieces of evidence, and even report from other journalists, the man was actually a regular panelist at the radio station. So why the local journalist was involved in trying to analyze the laws and those that even prevent anybody who is a politician being involved into local chieftaincy election. The so-called politician and two members left in that crew and attacked the journalist while he was on air. He was threatened to be punched in the face, if not slapped, if he made any other comment in respect of the politician and his involvement into the local chieftaincy election. He was being called directly on BBC. The man left the local radio station and came out. It was heard on the BBC, a very heated debate moving on, yet the man said he was safe and sound. Nevertheless, journalists in Ghana are generally calling on the media regulation body and the government to fully investigate the alleged attack on the journalist while he was doing his professional job. These are some of the things that happens to journalists in Africa. We are being exposed to attack, to torture, to detention, to everything. Sometimes even when you have the legal powers to operate, you are still being disturbed by these so-called politicians. Then let's come to Burkina Faso. Captain Traore has hailed the president of Russia, because when you hail the government of Russia, you are hailing Vladimir Putin. Now, Russia is a very good partner, and they are very satisfied with the model of operandi of Russia into Burkina Faso. They claim that Russia is a partner. Russia is not a dictator. And they are willing to work with Russia. France still remains a friend, he confessed, because France has an embassy still in Burkina Faso. Nevertheless, he wants partners, not dictators. He wants people who will help support his government, help supply them with arms and ammunition, provide a free market for them, not people who will pamper terrorism into his country. That was a direct indictment on France. He has hailed Russia, and he also claimed that the Wangan group of Russia is definitely not in any way helping them to fight against terrorism. However, he said they still need support from international forces to do away with those people. So if France, America, Great Britain, anybody who wants to do business with them must respect themselves, must respect their constitution, and must be willing to support the goal of the Burkinabés, not to come there with any impulsive mentality. They believe in coordination and not in dictation. Then finally, we come African leaders arriving in London for King Charles' coronation. Very good. They are going there to eat, drink, and say a lot of things. Promise everything. They will get there in colorful robes. Everybody wants to see the king. The king is no longer. Everyone want to rub shoulders with the white. Maybe come. Liberia, George Weah is already in London. Zimbabwe, Emerson Mnangagwa is expected, and he feels elated after he got the invitation. It's over 3 decades. He's the first president of Zimbabwe to actually visit the king or in London, or to even go there on official visit. He thinks and feels that this particular invitation will lead to a cordial or convivial relationship with him and the London government. He claims that his visit will yield dividends, and it will lead to negotiation, maybe slight waiving of sanctions on his country. Zimbabwe, Hichilema is also going there. Zambia, Hichilema is also going there. Then Liberia, George Weah is heading there. Paul Kagame of Rwanda is also heading there. Mswati III, the king of Eswatini, is also heading there. The man who is known to be an abuser of human rights and a well-established polygamous king is also heading there. Then the president of Niger is definitely heading there. Ivory Coast president will be going there. But Cameroon, Paul Biya is too old to attend. So he has sent his prime minister to attend on his behalf. Shame, insult on that nation of having a leader who is almost 5 decades in power. Africa is full of unscrupulous stories. We pray and hope that our scenario changes come 2024. We need to do a careful maybe explication into our history, change in narrations, and the headline shall be changed. Thank you for listening. It's been me, Edward Amara FOL, focus on Liberia, West African correspondent, based in Kenema City, Freetown, Sierra Leone. To end the news, we made headlines once more. Death toll rises to 170 after DR Congo floods. Then inquiry seeks for justice for Kenya death cult victims. Then Somalia reports 70% decrease in al-Shabab attacks. Egypt blocker head for alleged child exploitation. Then the Mali junta says delayed referendum will be held on the 18th June 2023. Cannabis and khat. Ban overturned Uganda. On-air attack on journalists must be investigated, according to the journalists in Ghana. Then Burkina Faso hails Russia as a strategic, if not a spectacular partner, compared to a dictatorial partner that we are having with France. Finally, African leaders arrive in London for King's coronation. Among them are George Weah, President of Zimbabwe, Emerson Mnangagwa, Ikilendi Hichilema of Zambia, Paul Biya of Cameroon, sending his Prime Minister, Paul Kagame of Rwanda, then Maswati of Eswatini, former Swaziland, changing then, and French-speaking of Africa, you have countries like Niger, Ivory Coast, and Cameroon. Thank you very much. It's been me, Edward Amara FOL, West African correspondent, coming to you with the latest development on the continent of Africa.